China is again on the growth path. She's now a member of WTO. She knows that every year she's growing faster than anybody else, and can do that for another 20, 30 years because they've got such an enormous number of workers back in the West in the hinterland. 8, 9%, 10%, no trouble at all. But after that, then they reach a ceiling where the labor is concerned, and then they got to increase productivity. But by then, in 30 years, they would have an economy, not per capita, but in total terms, bigger than the USA, which means they've got resources to build up political, strategic, and other influence. And in fact,
globalization.
Well, industrialization first, and then they globalize it. And America is the extension of Europe, with a difference, in that she's more embracing of other races. The 20th century was the American century. The first half of the 21st century, a large part of it will still be the American. But I believe the second half, you will have to share top places with China and also with India, make space for them too.
That the relationship between the United States and China, based on what you just said, has become the most important global geopolitical issue of the century.
Yes.
How they both handle it.
From the Chinese side, in a very pragmatic, almost cold-blooded and clinical fashion. On the American side, there's been some vacillations. First, China is an adversary, strategic adversary, then China is a strategic partner, then China is a stakeholder, then China is not carrying its weight. So I said to them, well, that means although you're not a shareholder in the company, you have an interest in the company, because you sell to the company, and if the company goes bust, you've got no customer. And if you've got no customer, your trade will go down and you have unemployment. So you have an interest in keeping that company going. And they have an interest in keeping you going because you are a good customer. You're a good producer for them. Cheap goods, cheap products, and good quality.
Well, there's great hope that they will become more of a consuming economy and we'll become more of a saving economy. You point that out.
The Chinese have had 4,000 years or 5,000 years of all kinds of catastrophes. Earthquakes, floods, famine, invasions, where the central government failed entirely. And nobody can help you. You've got to help yourself. Let me tell you this anecdote. I was having my game left shoulder from golf being massaged by a very superior Chinese master who attends to their leaders. I mean, they sent him down to try and fix my game shoulder, and he fixed it in 3 weeks. So we had to chat, because I have 45 minutes on the couch. What can I do? So there was a flood up the Yangtze River. So I said, oh, well, now you've opened up. You get lots of relief supplies. He looked at me and puzzled. He says, you don't understand. The relief supplies will arrive in Shanghai. The floods will prevent it from reaching the villages. And each village knows that it's going to happen from time to time. And up on a little hill, they keep the rice, the salt, and all the essentials safe so that they will survive such a calamity. And that habit, just like the Japanese have the kit underneath their bed for earthquakes, that is their habit of surviving. So they stuff the money under the pillow, because banks are not trustworthy, or gold.
And that habit is not going to change. That habit of saving.
It will take a long time. It will take 1-2 generations of affluence. And it may happen in the cities, and it's not going to happen in the countryside.
You talk about the Chinese as having patience, and they have persistence, and they have discipline, and they have organization. But you say America has something special that will be part of the inevitable competition. It is its resilience, and more importantly, its creativity.
Yes, of course. Look, it's not just American talent that gets you here. There are just 300 million people, and they got 1,300 million, and very many more able people. But you are attracting all the adventurous minds from all over the world and embracing them, and they become part of your team. Now, I don't see 2 million Indians and 500,000 other peoples, Japanese, Koreans, and others, becoming part of China. I mean, first, the language is so difficult.
Yes.
Secondly, the culture is not embracive.
What should the United States do as it looks at the inevitable growth of China as a dominant player? What would be a wise foreign policy?
I think...
Because you have 2 or 3 decades before it reaches its full strength.
No, even in 3 decades, it won't reach its full strength. In 3 decades, its per capita is still about 1/3 of America.
Right. Its gross domestic product.
Well, for it to reach America's standard of living and standard of technology will take more than 100 years. This generation understands it. They know that they have no chance competing against the West, America especially, in technology, and especially military technology. There's absolutely no chance. They may build an aircraft carrier to guard the shipping lines where they carry oil and other minerals. This is the first time that the Chinese are growing, but dependent on the world for its resources.
But they're going around the world signing up contracts in Iran and in Africa. And
absolutely, but before that, it's all within the Chinese empire. They don't have to worry about the rest of the world. This time, they have to worry about the rest of the world, because without the resources, the oil, the iron ore, nickel, whatever, the growth will stop.
Will they be able to create the domestic demand that's necessary as they find exports reduced?
Slowly. But in the meantime, there's keeping the economy going by enormous expenditure on infrastructure in the West. High-speed roads, high-speed railways, airports, telephone lines, bringing water from the south up to the north where it's arid and dry. Huge, enormous mammoth projects. That keeps it going.
Will India have an advantage, some argue, because it's a democracy and China is not?
Let me put it this way. If India were as well organized as China, it would go at a different speed. But it's going at the speed it is because it is India. It's not one nation, it's many nations. It has 320 different languages and 32 official languages. So no prime minister in Delhi can at any one time speak in a language and be understood throughout the country. You can do that in Beijing.
So in the end, do you think that system will change in Beijing?
I think it will have to change as the people get more and more urbanized. Today it's about 40% urban, or less than 40% urban, more than 60% rural. When you reach the tipping point and 60-70% are urban with mobile phones, PDAs, you can download anything you want, send any messages you want. It's already had its effect. I mean, the Sichuan earthquake, and today they're watching the internet very carefully because they know what the average person in the cities are thinking.
Now, what are they afraid of? Where is their fear of?
No, it's not afraid. They just do not want to lose control.
Well, so they're afraid of control.
No, they are afraid that they will lose control of the situation. In the old days, way back in Mao's days, everybody is dependent on the state. The state is the only employer, and everybody has what you call a hukou. Hukou is a residence permit. And if you lose your job because you're anti the government or you're a crook or whatever, you've had it. There's no other employer. But today, there are multiple employers, all companies.
So people have options.
Yes, absolutely. And that means the government has lost control over the people. I mean, they can be entrepreneurs, they run their own businesses, shops, whatever it is.
But are they moving towards some form, not a Western form, some form of more participation in the political process?
They are co-opting all the successful people into the communist system.
That's a smart policy.
Jiang Zemin calls it the 3 representatives. So whether you're an artist, whether you're a businessman, whether you're an activist, anybody who's got the extra drive to contribute to a greater China, come and join us.
And there is never now a guarantee of unanimous support. It's hard to put together, for example, sanctions against Iran.
Iran is a special case. Iran got oil and gas. The Chinese desperately need oil and gas. Russia is playing a game with Iran. Russia doesn't need oil and gas, but Russia wants to cut the U.S. down to size and remind the U.S., you need me to run the war. With the Chinese, they are doing their calculations. I think in extremis, they must know that if they buck the world, once the Russian says, all right, we agree, I would bet 50-50 that the Chinese will also say.
So if the Russians say we'll engage in sanctions, the Chinese will follow.
They would not want to be the odd man out and be held responsible.
What if the United States would find another partner or another supplier of energy for Iran?
No, in place of Iran.
Yes.
Where do you find it?
Well, in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, not possible.
Not possible.
But I had a Chinese diplomat say to me that they would welcome that. That if in fact they did not have a necessity of needing Iranian oil, they would go along with sanctions because they don't think
they need Iranian oil, they need Arabian oil, they need Nigerian oil, they need Angolan oil,
they need all the oil they can find anywhere.
Yes, of course.
To fuel the economic growth at 8%.
Absolutely.
But you also said in the speech that I read that their capabilities of Russia are limited. The capabilities are limited.
Well, they've got enormous nuclear arsenal. But what else? Their army is a very different army now. The Air Force, they're building new fighters, but I mean, their Navy. Yes, and their population is declining. AIDS, alcohol, drugs, and pessimism. I mean, if you're every year more Russians die than Russians are born, because people are not optimistic in America. People are optimistic and say, right, I'll bring a child into the world.
What about Japan? Back to Asia.
I think the Japanese need an overhaul.
In terms of that political system.
Yeah. And in terms of their acceptance of immigrants. Their birth rate is 1 point, their fertility rate is just slightly higher than ours. We're 1.29, they're 1.38, and they're shrinking. But we are a small population, so we can make up with any numbers from young, bright Indians, young, bright Chinese, young, bright Malaysians, and all the people around the world. And some Middle Easterners, we now have Ukrainians serving in our army, our citizens.
Ukrainians in Singapore?
Yes, of course. Russians too. East Europeans. And Britishers who have married our local girls. And British women who have married Singapore men. But Japan does not want immigrants. So they are stuck. Today they have 3.2 working persons to support one adult. In 2055, they'll have 1.2 persons to support one adult.
And immigrants has been America's strength.
Absolutely. But mind you, immigration of the highly intelligent and highly hardworking, very hardworking people. If you get immigration of the fruit pickers, you may not get very far.
I met a Chinese delegation recently who's here in the last couple of weeks, and I said to a very important member of the government, not at the highest level, but very important, what are you doing here? He said, we're trying to get highly educated Chinese.
To go back?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
To go back.
Yeah.
I said, well, what do you say to them? I say to them, you'll have opportunity, and I say to them, the homeland needs you. That's what he said.
Yeah, that doesn't sell.
What
will sell is you can leave anytime you want, and allow your children special educational facilities, and all of you can keep your American green card or passports.
And that works.
Well, I'm not sure whether it'll work, but they'll go back and test the waters. Some. But will you go back and stay? Maybe, because of the older generation, they're emotionally tied up. But will your children stay? No. Their upbringing has been here, and they go back to China and they say, wow, this is a very regimented society. Papa, I'm going back. So, there's no comparison. I mean, there are there's chalk and cheese between the two societies, especially for young children who can see how independent American children are and can grow up and become anything they want, beatniks if you like, or whatever in China.
Yes.
You come out like sausages.
Yes, exactly, sir.
China wants time to grow.
To grow.
If there's going to be any conflict, let's postpone it for 50 years.
But inevitably, at some...
It is not going back to Tang China or Han China, where they were the only dominant power in the world. This time they're going back to a world where there are several dominant poles that's as inventive and more creative than them.
So we're looking at a multipolar world.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll
That'll be the U.S., that'll be China. The Indians are going to be themselves. They're not going to be anybody's lackey. They may not be as big as China in GDP.
And you also suggest they've got to develop a manufacturing capacity.
Yes, of course. You're going to have... Europe will be an economic force. It will not be a strategic, political, or military force, because they can't get together. The foreign policy.
It's inevitable that they can never get together?
I'm not saying it's inevitable, but if you look at them, that's still 27 different nations. I mean, they won't accept one language, although they all use English as a second language. But you tell them that in Brussels you speak either French or English, or either your own language or English, which is what is actually happening in committees. They absolutely refuse. So how long will that take to disappear? I don't know. It may never happen.
Take Singapore.
Yes.
You have said that Singapore has to maintain its relevance.
Yes.
It has to be a place that people want to invest in. It has to be a place, go ahead.
It has to be a place that's useful to the world. Otherwise it wouldn't exist.
And that's what you had created since the founding of the modern city-state.
Yes. We have made ourselves relevant to the world.
And how will you maintain your relevancy?
By keeping on changing. You cannot maintain your relevance by just staying put. The world changes. There are shifts in the geopolitics and the economics of the world. We've got to watch it and we've got to ride it. You surf with them. As the surf comes this way, you ride the surf. We are keeping our links with America, with Japan, with Europe. They brought us to where we are.
And you're not going to have to choose sides. No other nation will have to choose sides.
We absolutely refuse to choose sides.
But
we will not choose sides between America and China or between China and India.
But I just read today an announcement by your Sovereign Wealth Fund in Singapore of like over, $1.3 billion in new investments, none coming to the United States, going to China, to India, to Brazil, and I've forgotten where else.
It's just 1.3 billion out of 300 billion. It's just.
But none to the United States, mostly going to what they call the BRIC countries.
Yeah, but the United States at the moment is in somewhat of a unstable state. Is the dollar going to decline?
What do you
Yes,
think?
It is cheap. But supposing you buy and the deficits grow and Ben Bernanke is unable, your federal Germany is unable to draw enough liquidity out of the market and you got hyperinflation. Wow, it will go down and you've lost money. So everybody's hedging. And there's a very
So they're hedging by looking at other places to...
Yeah, but where? You tell me.
No, tell me where. If it's not the United States, there's nowhere to go right now.
We go to partly to the euro.
Yeah.
We're not going to, very little to Japan, Australia, New Zealand. The RMP, the Chinese yuan, is highly controlled. They can make it go up, they can make it go down, and you're not quite sure which way it's going to go. Whereas in the US, you can look at the figures and you can read the federal reports every time they make a decision, and you can make your guess.
You also said that China and the United States, they both have to change their mindset.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Well, for the Americans, you've got to cease to think in terms of the Chinese as of they are today. Exactly. The Chinese as they are today are people who have been suffering for a very long time, especially under Mao, and who feel that the world is cruel to them. In 25 years' time, you're going to meet a generation who are now in the lower ranks, who have been to America and Britain and Europe, and will be English-speaking and have different models in their minds. And they will know that they are not going to be the sole power in the world. Not ever again. Because this is a globalized world. And they know that they are dependent on the world for their growth. The resources that they need.
So they're going to be part of the world.
Yes. Before, everything grew within China. Whatever they needed, they captured territory.
Then they found global markets. George
H.W. Bush invited them to sell to America. And he had a liking for them. They were good to him. So he says, you sell to us. And they sold, and they succeeded. And they said, yeah, this is the way to get out of our poverty.
That was your friend Deng Xiaoping that said that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then they got into the World Trade Center as a member, WTO. I've just met Bob Rubin today, and he and Henry Kissinger and I told him that Clinton turned down Chu Rongqi for this WTO.
Right.
So he said to him, that's a great mistake, because if you turn them down, all they will do is to be a spoiler. They'll reverse engineer all your patents, and you find generic products and imitations on the market. Now, bring them in, get them to observe the rules.
Well, that's a big if.
Yeah.
You got to get them to observe the rules.
They are going to have to observe the rules, and they will.
And they understand that.
No, because they are making patents of their own now.
They want to open the markets around the world.
That's
and
right.
Be a part of the global economy.
No. They are doing research almost in every sector now. including life sciences.
Here's what, which is something that Singapore got involved in very much with stem cell.
Yeah.
Why did you do that?
Well, we figured out that with these smart fellows around, and so many of them, whatever we do, they will do in time and better. But there are some areas where they will take a very long time to be able to do what we are doing. And that's to change the system from opacity to transparency, from no protection for copyright to protection for copyright, and rule of law. There are two rules of law in China, one for the ordinary citizen, and the other for 76 million members of the Communist Party. And the judges will do what they know what the leaders require to keep the country stable. So, would you look? We've got all the big pharma companies in Singapore.
Yes.
They're not in China. They will sell their
because
products
you have protection, you have rule of law, you have protection of patents.
And we're doing joint research with them. I think the U.S. can be a benign stabilizer of the world order.
A benign stabilizer.
Yes. Without the U.S., East Asia would never have grown. You brought peace and technology, trade and investments, and East Asia flourished.
Well, that's clear. It's happened in East Asia.
Yeah,
You're talking about Singapore and North and South Korea.
No,
and
absolutely. So.
And you got to help them join the WTO and all the things they want to do.
No, they've already joined.
I know they've joined, but you've got to make sure that they're treated fairly.
You've got to make sure that they understand membership requires certain obligations.
Right.
And the obligations start with responsibility.
But you also say about the United States, it has to realize that most problems need an American participation in order to be solved.
Yes, absolutely.
The man that you most admired of all the people you'd ever met was Deng Xiaoping.
Yeah.
That's what you told me.
Yeah.
Deng Xiaoping admired you too because he sent Chinese, 30,000, 40,000 of them, to Singapore to figure out what you were doing. Am I right?
Yes.
What was it you were doing that he wanted to see?
He was astonished when he came for the first time in 1978 to tell us to prevent Vietnam from invading Cambodia because they're doing it on behalf of the Russians. Then he found a Singapore which was contrary to what he was given in his brief.
Yes.
He found a prosperous, orderly society, everybody owning their own homes and with a job. So I said, how did you get there? I said, well, we educated our people, and look at all these companies, Americans, Japanese, Europeans. They bring technology, they train our people, we learn how to do things. And because we're cheaper, after a while we become general managers and company managing directors. And we learn how to do that, and we become suppliers to them. So he said, oh, you made use of capitalism to build a more egalitarian society. Everybody owns their own home. I will do the same.
And he did?
He did. He did. He went back and declared 12 special economic zones. Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Shanghai, Dalian, and so on. All the coastal cities, and it succeeded.
So he was the greatest man you ever met because understood, because of the results. He changed the nation, and therefore...
He's a member of the old guard. He fought in the Long March.
Right.
He chased the KMT out across the Yangtze. He led the...
He was a victim of the Cultural Revolution.
Yes, but he was realistic. He knew the system was not working. He knew that they were going to end up down in a deep hole. And he decided, against all the advice of his fellow old guards, that we will change course.
And he had the brains and the power to pull it off.
Yes. And when they tried to stop him in 1992 from going too fast, he went down to Shenzhen and said, learn from all countries in the world. And most of all, learn from Singapore. The order is good, and they are a very prosperous society.
You've never had a moment that you thought Singapore was too authoritative, have you? Not one moment.
My job is to get the place going and give everybody a decent life and a decent education. And we're now the best educated people in the whole of East Asia. Our universities, we've got 4 universities, 4th one coming up.
So the end justifies the means, whatever it might be.
No, it's that the ends were laudable. Everybody wants the same ends. Everybody wants good education, good health.
A good life, and their children do better than they did.
The means, I had the consent and support of the population. If they opposed me and they did not cooperate, it wouldn't have worked.
You were in control of everything.
No.
Yes, you were. You know that.
But the numbers of people who were opposing me, including the communists in the very early days, was endless.
China is growing at 8% in the second half of 2009, and it looks better and better as it goes out.
No. The Chinese economy is nothing compared to the American economy.
Because the base is different.
Once you're stabilized, I never thought that the Soviet Union would implode so easily.
Yeah.
And I never thought that the Chinese would abandon the communist system and move into the free market so readily. It was unthinkable 20 years ago. Both has happened. The world has changed.
And it's not clear exactly how it's all going to...
No, it is not exactly clear when it will happen.
Exactly.
But that it will happen now in the long term, 50 to 100 years, yes.
And the center of gravity is shifting to Asia.
Must be, because the population is there. The talent pool of 1.3 billion people, plus the Japanese, the Koreans, and the Vietnamese and the others, no, it can match Europe and America. But that talent pool was inert. Did not have science and technology, did not care about science and technology. But now, everything that you do, Asia is doing. You go into stem cell research, we are going into stem cell research. Tiny Singapore has to go into it in order to get into a field where the Chinese cannot compete with us. And the Chinese are in it in a very big way. They are watching you, and whatever you do, say, oh yes, we will do that. We are far behind, of course, but given time, they're going to catch up.
They're enormously curious.
They are.
Enormously curious.
Not just curious, they're enormously ambitious to catch up.
For good reasons and for good ends.
That you must ask them. But I think the reason is they have a sense of frustration that they were down for so long.
Right.
Let's make it now.
And the United States has to encourage them?
No, you don't have to encourage them. You just got to understand that they don't want to be an honorary member of the West, unlike Russia. They're quite happy to be Chinese and to remain as such. So when you tell them you ought to do this, you ought to do that, they say, yes, thank you. And in the back of their minds, we have lasted 5,000 years, have you? That Beijing Olympics, if you watch it, what was the message?
We're back.
No, 5,000 years. And don't forget, we invented all these things. And we're going to go ahead in the next 5,000 years. It's the only country where a language has survived 5,000 years. The only country where the present generation shares the same basic thinking as the past. And they're very proud of it. I mean, you read Hu Jintao's speech on the 60th anniversary. I mean, it's all translated on the web.
No.
What is it? We have 5,000 years of civilization. We are going to get there. And it's a rousing speech. It may take us a long time. You're going to work very hard. We will do it. That's their mood, so you don't have to encourage them. What you got to get them to understand is, with it goes responsibility. Hungry Africans, hungry, sick other people. This is a global problem. You can't just take copper and gold and to hell with it. You got to have a responsibility with the people whose copper and gold you're mining. It goes with the job. And they will have to learn that. I think they're already beginning to learn that, so they're giving something back.
It's a pleasure to talk to you again, as always.